Evil magicians, demonic ice cream vans, parallel universes, and young punks skateboarding on the wrong side of the US-Mexican border, all part of the crazy world of VHS Viral. Welcome to the third episode of my VHS review series, and I've got a quick confession to make before we get going. I bought this on DVD 3 or 4 years ago now, must have been, and I never ended up watching it. I literally dumped it on the shelf and never ended up putting it on. I don't know why. That's only ever happened to me once before. I bought a film called Troy with Brad Pitt in it, and I've still never watched it to this day, and it's still sat on my shelf. It's not as if I didn't enjoy the second VHS film, so I'm not sure what happened with this. Possibly I was slightly influenced by the less than favourable reviews that VHS Viral got, but it was only this year, when the franchise was revived by Shudder for a fourth film, that I finally thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to have to get around to watching VHS Viral. So I did, and just this week I gave it a second watch so I could do this review. Now, in terms of how I'm going to approach it, it's going to be the exact same format as what I had in place for the previous two reviews. So I'm going to start by talking about the framing device, or wraparound story. I still can't settle on a technical term for what that is. And then I will move on to the main stories in the film in the exact order in which you see them when you watch VHS Viral. So without further ado, let's jump into it, starting with that wraparound. It's called Vicious Circles. Hallelujah! Praise the Lord! At the third time of asking in this series, we have finally found a wraparound segment which is actually worth a jot. So we begin with these two youngsters who are clearly besotted with each other. They're making videos of one another near a dam or a viaduct. I think it's that same place that you see in Terminator 2 where Robert Patrick's in a truck and he's chasing Edward Furlong on a motorbike. It pops up in a lot of movies and TV shows. I'm pretty sure it was in Fear the Walking Dead. I think it's in LA, geographically, I'm not sure. Anyway, later that night or the following night, this couple are at home, or one of their homes, and an ice cream van speeds past their house at like 100 miles an hour, being chased by cop cars. There's clearly something demonic about this ice cream van, because everybody it passes, it makes them go a little bit crazy. People start killing themselves or killing other people. It has a big effect on the girl that we've been following. She enters a kind of zombie-like state. We don't see it on screen, but it's sort of inferred from later events that she either jumped into the back of this ice cream van as it was passing, or, as is more likely, she walks to the viaduct that we saw earlier and ends up getting hit by the ice cream van later on. So I think that's the vicious circle in the title. This is a really random story, if you can even call it that. If you're the sort of person who likes their horror tied up in a bow, fully explained, this is not going to be for you. But I quite like mysterious, unexplained things like this. It just ticked the boxes for me. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed coming back to this segment in between the other stories to see what was going to happen next, to see what grisly deaths were in store for all the locals who try and get close to this ice cream van. The ending is completely indecipherable. Is that a word? I do not have a clue what is going on in the viaduct at the end. There are a pair of hands on the steering wheel of the ice cream van that have been cut off. By who? Was anybody driving this van, or were these hands just driving the van by themselves? No idea. There are a bunch of videotapes in the back. For some reason, somebody has to come along and upload these tapes to the internet. Whoever was behind this ice cream van can't do it themselves. There's no rhyme or reason to what's going on with this. I've tried to figure it out with little success, but maybe that's the whole point of it. It's just meant to be a barrel load of fun. And you know what? It is. I really enjoyed it. So thumbs up for me when it comes to Vicious Circles. This is the first of our main stories, and it's friggin' awesome. Dante the Great is about this unemployed layabout who finds a magic cloak one day somehow, which enables him to bend time and space and to teleport. So he uses this to become a world-famous magician called Dante the Great. I'm pretty sure that Dante would not have been his birth name, but what we get in the beginnings of this story is an incredible montage showing the rise of Dante at the beginning of his career. We see lots of tricks that he performs at his shows. At one point, he lifts some of the audience members way up into the sky. He teleports a couple from New York to LA. And the funny thing is, nobody seems to think that this is really weird. Everyone just thinks, hey, great magic, Dante, keep going. But of course, nothing in life is completely free. And it turns out this magic cloak has a conscience. It's very evil. It insists on human sacrifices in order for its owner to continue using its magic. So it turns out that Dante has been offing stage hands while the early stages of his career have been ongoing. Most of these people have been women, but the police are closing in on Dante, and his latest potential victim twigs what's going to happen to her just in the nick of time. So what we get at the end of this story is an incredible fight sequence between this girl and Dante. They both are able to channel the power of the cloak because they keep getting their hands on the cloak during the fight. And it ends up being something like a horror version of The Matrix. It's really cool. I'll tell you what else it reminds me of. The fight between Saruman and Gandalf in The Fellowship of the Ring when they're in Saruman's tower, except this is better. Yes, one element at least of VHS Viral is better than Lord of the Rings. It's really great stuff. At one point, a group of FBI guys come in, armed to the teeth, and Dante's just ripping them a new one. He's just using his hands to like destroy them. He sort of does this, and like this guy's rib cage explodes, and then he twists his hands another way, and this FBI guy's flying in the air. It's almost comedic. I'm giggling away, just really enjoying it. I'm not entirely sure it's horror at this point. It's just a weird blend of sci-fi black comedy, but it's absolutely awesome. There's only one misstep that this story commits, which is right at the end. It insists on putting in a one last scare, but it just not needed. The story had finished brilliantly as it was. It didn't need that. But leaving that aside, Dante the Great, wow, what a start to this film we've had so far. A great framing device and a great first story. Boom! We are 2 for 2. Parallel Monsters is possibly the best story in this entire franchise. It is amazing. So it's about this guy who invents some kind of weird machine down in his basement that allows him to walk through a kind of portal into a mirror image of his own world. So when he walks through this thing, on the other side is a guy that's basically a clone of him who has also invented the same machine, but on the other side, because everything is replicated, but it's in reverse. So these two versions of himself talk to each other and decide that they're going to cross over onto each other's sides and explore each other's houses. But all there is to see, they think, is just the fact that the houses are reversed. So on the opposite side, the stairs will be on the other side, etc., etc. Of course, we, the audience, know that there's going to be much worse to see through this portal than that. But what I really like about this story is that it takes its time. The tension builds slowly. It's not like in, say, Silent Hill, when the other world comes, it comes really quickly. The walls start peeling away, and boom, you're in hell with grates and fiery things and stuff. In this story, things go a lot more slower. At first, it looks like this other house really is just the guy's normal house, but flipped. But then he spots a painting on the wall of the stairs, which shows some kind of weird ceremony. But it's when he meets his other version of his wife where you really start to think something is totally off here, because she is not the same at all as his normal wife. In the mirror image world, she's like some kind of sex addict. She's even got two blokes around to have a threesome with. So it's sort of implied that the otherworld husband is totally okay with this, but it's not like they're even going to have a proper threesome. God knows what they're planning to do, because there's just like a bag of blood in the middle of the living room when the three of them sit down on the couch to do whatever they're going to do. There's like a loudspeaker playing sex noises from somewhere. There's a weird video on. And by this point, I am just totally unsettled as to what this is. I'm thinking to myself, everything's going to hit the fan any moment now. I was really, really on edge watching this. And when this guy, our character that we're following, when he goes outside, things get even weirder. He looks into the sky and there's like a blimp with a weird symbol on it. So eventually shit does hit the fan, and he ends up hightailing it back to his own world. But it doesn't entirely go well for him when he tries to do that. I won't tell you exactly what happens at the end if you've not seen it, but we go back to this theme of vicious circles from the framing narrative, and it's very much a vicious circle. This story is just amazing. It's such a good idea. Stephen King would have really liked this because he used to write short stories about people who would just invent random machines that made no sense, but in the stories that they were possible. You know, he did one called Word Processor of the Gods about a guy who just invented a machine where if he typed in the word of anything, it would disappear. So if he typed in the word my fridge, or the words my fridge, his fridge would just disappear from existence. And the story had a bit of fun with that concept. He did another one about a guy who invented a teleportation machine, you know, and just had a bit of fun with that. This is along those lines. Random guy just invents a machine that allows you to walk into a mirror image of your own world. My favourite part in this is just ludicrously fun. So this wife of his who's in the mirror world, she exercises her right to domestic violence at one point. This is a thing in the mirror world. So she just grabs the head of this guy, her husband in the other world, puts it to her like a vagina, and it opens up and there's teeth, and we don't see entirely what happens. I don't know if he gets mauled to death or just bitten a little bit to teach him a lesson sort of thing, but it happens so quick and it's like, whoa, what the hell? Seriously. I loved this. It's a really top-notch example of creative storytelling. It's just great writing. I absolutely loved it. This is the third and final main story. It's not as good as the first two, but given the fact that the first two are basically masterpieces in my opinion, I don't mind this one coming down in quality a little bit. It's not bad, it's just kind of middling. So we follow this group of young layabouts. They like to skateboard, but they've been banned from their local park for being dicks. But they've heard about this cool place across the border in Mexico where they might be able to skate in peace. So they decide to go there, but it turns out this place is not actually a skateboard park. It's just like a big, large concrete area. It's got weird symbols on the floor. And when these kids start skateboarding in and around the symbols, it turns out they've angered the gods or whatever. And all these like skeletons and zombie people start turning up. So we get into this big battle between punks and skeletons. It's very much an Evil Dead vibe. It feels like Ash battling the Evil Dead, but on roller skates, sort of. But if you're the sort of person who doesn't like the shaky cam aspect of found footage, then this story might piss you off, because even from my perspective, I love the found footage genre. Even I felt very nauseated watching this because the camera is all over the place. If I ever watch this story again, I'm going to have to take some Nurofen before I watch it, because, yeah, I was starting to feel it a little bit by the end of this. But if you can get past that, it's a lot of fun watching these punks take on these things. What really amused me is the fact that these kids are just like young layabouts from LA, but it turns out they're packing heat. They've got handguns in like the back of their jeans. You don't find that out until they suddenly whip them out and start using them halfway through the story. And I like the fact that they've got no qualms about using the guns at all. It's not like they've bought these guns at some point to look cool, but they've never used them. And now that they might have a chance to use them, they're all nervous about it. Like, oh, Pete, should I use it? Should I really use it? No, they just, as soon as they have to use them, it's like, no qualms. They just get straight into it. I loved that. I thought that was really cool. At one point, they're using firecrackers to explode the skeleton creatures. It's good fun. And I've actually got a theory as to how this story connects with the framing device. So two of the kids get away in the end on this kind of long stretch of concrete, which looks a bit like the viaduct from Vicious Circles. But of course, we're in Mexico. Now, I'm not the best at geography. I'm pretty sure that Mexico is still some distance away from LA, maybe. So I don't know if there's actually a viaduct in real life that goes all the way between those two locations. But even if there isn't, at the end of this story, there's some kind of weird monster that's unleashed, but the kids get away before they see it. Now, I'm thinking that this, whatever this monster is, I'm thinking that it chases these two skateboarders down eventually on their way home, kills them, and then just carries on into America, eventually arriving in LA. And I think that it is attracted somehow to the ice cream van. So say that this monster is quite demonic, the ice cream van is somehow demonic. Maybe it's a case of they're both sort of drawn to each other, or at least the monster is drawn towards where the ice cream van is. And so once the ice cream van is passing through that viaduct, I think the monster attacks it, kills the person driving the ice cream van, so that's why you just see the hands left on the steering wheel, and then the monster just disappears. That's my explanation. If you've got any other way of explaining the shit that goes on at the end of Vicious Circles, then let me know, but that's the best that I could come up with. It sort of fits for me. It's a stretch, but that's what I'm going for. Now, I did say that the previous story was the last. Gorgeous Vortex is not actually a part of VHS Viral. It's a bonus story which is included on the end of the Blu-ray version. So on the copy that I've got, it's not actually on here. You have to have the Blu-ray, and then this story will play after the main credits. But it doesn't matter if you haven't got the right version, because Gorgeous Vortex is available for free on YouTube. It's about 15 minutes long. I'm glad that they left it off. They haven't left it off because it wasn't of a good quality. They've left it off because it just does not fit with the rest of the movie. You'll understand when you watch it. It's not even really found footage. So God knows what this director was doing. Was he just not in sync with what everybody else was doing on this project? I don't know. But it's a weird little short film. It's hard to figure out what's going on. It sort of reminds me of the film The Ring. And I'm thinking more the American version. So when Naomi Watts puts on that videotape, you see a little 30-second montage of all this weird stuff going on, all these weird clips mingled together. This entire short is sort of like that, except the little bits within the film are slightly longer. And from what I can gather from reading online, I think you're not even meant to understand the story of this unless you watch it like 2, 3, 4 times and piece together slowly what's going on, because I think a lot of what you see in Gorgeous Vortex is played, it's not played in the right chronological order either, so it's just really confusing. It's almost like a jigsaw puzzle, and if you can be bothered and if you've got enough time on your hands, you can sit there, watch it over and over and try and slowly figure out where the pieces should go and what's going on. I personally don't really have the patience for it. I did enjoy it. It's very slick. It looks gorgeous on the screen. I would say that I'm glad that it's not on the main film. Definitely. I'm not even sure I'm that bothered about buying a Blu-ray just so I've got it so I can watch it straight after the movie. I'm happy I watched it once. I think that might be enough for me. But by all means, check it out. It's a freebie. It's on YouTube. You can just watch it whenever and see if you can figure out what's going on with this story. But it looks really good. I mean, visually, it's top class, but it certainly doesn't fit in with the normal VHS vibe. Right, that's it in terms of our main stories. I think it's time to head for our conclusion. So, as you can imagine, if you've stuck with me to this point of the review, you'll know that I'm going to be extremely favourable in my conclusion, because I really like VHS Viral. I cannot believe this sat on my shelf for years and I didn't watch it. I think it has the lowest Rotten Tomatoes score of any film in this franchise. And I think possibly the reason for that, and the reason why it's not the most popular entry, is because it's the one which feels the least like a traditional horror anthology. A lot of the stories in this are very sci-fi, they're very light, but the whole thing fits together as a package a lot better than the first 2 VHS films. Even though I enjoyed those, especially the first one, at times it does feel like I'm watching just a random bunch of stories thrown together with not that much thought or purpose. This film actually feels like it has a theme. It feels like a lot of thought has gone into how these particular stories will fit together. I really like the theme tune that plays on the end credits. It's also on the main menu of the DVD that I've got, and it really puts me into the mood for the film when I put it on. It's a song which, it's very disco, and it just kind of fits in with the fun that I have when I'm watching this. I think if you're watching this with other people, I think you'll enjoy it more than if you watch the other VHS entries with other people. If you've got a bunch of you, this is absolutely the one to put on. You'll have a good time with it. So let's head to the Bag of Terror and see how this all translates into a score. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 bloody axes out of 5 for VHS Viral. That ties it with the score that I gave the original VHS, and I'm not sure right now which I prefer out of those 2 films. So I'm going to have a think about that by the time that I come to my VHS ranking at some point next year. But that's all for today. I'll be back very soon with a review of the fourth film in this series, VHS 94. Until next time, cheerio.